Aloha, everybody. It's Annalisa here at the Hawaii News Now Digital Center. And joining me this morning is Representative Diamond Garcia. He's one of our state lawmakers representing the west side of Oahu.
West side, best side.
Aloha. Good to have you
Aloha.
here. So tell us a little bit about your district and your constituents.
Sure. So I have the honor of serving the good families of District 42 out in West Oahu that covers Kapolei, Ho'opili, and Ewa. And, just 10 years ago, Kapolei, Makakilo, and the whole plains there was just one district, but we've had the substantial population increase with lots of housing development, and so now there's two separate Kapolei House districts, and I represent District 42, and that consists of mostly the villages of Kapolei, the Hawaiian homesteads in Kapolei, a portion of Ho'opili, which is brand new development, and then the Ewa villages. So.
All right. Lots of interesting things happening in your district. Are there a few kind of touch point issues you really focus on this session?
Well, I think, overall, our West Oahu families are focused on the cost of living. I mean, that issue, most politicians will go right to that issue. But really, we have the average age in my district is in their mid-30s. So it's a pretty young district. It's lots of young families who have children. They're trying to survive here in Hawaii, maybe just bought their first home, or they're still living with family in Hawaiian homestead programs, and they're looking at how can we afford to stay in Hawaii. So my biggest priority is to make sure that legislatively we represent their voices, we fight back against tax increases, we fight back against proposals that would significantly increase the cost of everyday goods.
All right. Well, that's a very important cause for sure, especially now with inflation and all kinds of things happening with gas prices.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about, obviously you are the minority floor leader, part of the Republican Party. Give us an update on how the caucus is doing. Are you confident this session that you're going to get some of your bills moving forward past where they would usually stall?
That's a good point. So yes, we are the minority. I have the honor of serving as the minority floor leader, and that means I basically lead our party, our caucus, when we're on the House floor. Just yesterday we passed over 200 bills on third reading yesterday, so it crossed over to the Senate, and we had a 7-hour floor session. It was a lengthy floor debate, and really that's what our role is. We are the loyal opposition. We speak out, we hold the majority accountable, and sometimes there's hardly any debate on the floor, but going forward now, I warn them, expect more debate, because debate is good. It's good to have debate. It's good to talk about issues. It's good to hear from different perspectives, different ideas, different ideologies. That's what the floor is for. It's built for public debate. It's the people's house. And so, we will stand against, like I mentioned, tax increases, soft on crime proposals which will impact our Hawaiian community as well. So that's what we do. Yeah. Okay.
Well, tell us about any particular bills that you are championing this session.
Sure. Well, and going back to our caucus question, I truly believe we are the most united caucus we've had in a long time. We are up to 9 members, but really 8 of us who caucus in our caucus currently, and we have the largest Republican representation in over 20 years right now. It's been very low for a long time, and due to the last few election cycles, we've picked up seats in both the House and Senate, and we intend to keep that trend going this coming election. And so because of that, because of the increase in numbers in the legislature, we now have more seats on various committees. For years, our caucus had just 1 member on the Finance Committee. Well, now we have 3 members on there because we increased in numbers. For years, we had 1 member on the Judiciary Committee, on the Health Committee, on the Human Services Committee. Now we have 2 members. Same thing with education and higher education. So that's why balance is really important. It's important to have a strong 2-party system, to have balance, to make sure that bad ideas just don't fly through on a rubber stamp approval. And so this session, there are bills moving forward from the Republicans. I have a House Bill 2201, which passed third reading. It passed the House, and it's now crossed over to the Senate. And this bill would expand the Enterprise Zones program. So the Enterprise Zone program was passed in 1986. And that established geographical zones where if they meet certain criteria, business, they would be exempt from certain taxes. And so the whole point of this back in the 80s was to spark economic growth, to bring jobs into various areas that needed them. And so that program has not been updated since the mid to late 80s. And my bill, House Bill 2201, would expand each county's ability to nominate zones. So right now, each county across Hawaii can nominate 6 zones. So 6 zones per county. This bill would expand that to 8 zones. It would also expand the business eligibility criteria to include film production and recycling facilities. And we're looking at more further amendments, but again, we're trying to spark more economic growth, especially in West Oahu, as more families are moving in to that area.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point because I heard that even though we do have these enterprise zones, a lot of businesses don't qualify because of certain levels of employment or revenue. Is that part of the kind of redoing of that?
Yes, and we're looking at it, and so it passed the House. There was no amendments made for the most part in the House. We're hoping to add some amendments to expand business eligibility criteria to really allow more businesses to capture that benefit. Again, this was designed back in the mid to late 80s, and it hasn't been updated since. And some members feel that this would cause a lack of revenue to the state, but really I view this as a win-win. When you spark more growth, the state makes more in the long run with income taxes, with more spending. And so just because we might lose certain tax revenues from the business right now, there will be a long-term gain overall with the creation of jobs, with families being able to live here, afford to live here, and the state would in turn make more revenue. So it's a win-win. In my opinion, it is common sense, and I'm glad that it's been supported so far in a bipartisan manner.
That's good. And well, we're talking about taxes, right? It is tax season, April 15th, that deadline, guys. And I know a lot of businesses, not just residents who struggle with the tax burden, but businesses have a very high tax burden. That's why we are consistently at the bottom of these rankings.
49 or 50. We go back and forth, but yeah.
Yeah. So is there any kind of measures that you're seeing that will actually push through to help support our businesses do better?
I would hope so. But unfortunately, I haven't really seen that this session. In fact, what we are seeing is a massive tax increase on local businesses, and that is happening via the governor's proposal to claw back the income tax reductions, which was passed two years ago. And some may say, well, how is that affecting businesses? Because that's personal income tax. Well, people have to realize that many small business owners will count their business income as personal income. Small businesses. They're not very large, but they'll count their business income as personal income, and that might push them over $200,000 a year, or $300,000 a year. They're not rich. They're small business owners. And unfortunately, the governor and Hawaii's Democrats are pushing forward this proposal. It passed yesterday in the House Bill 2306, I believe it was, to repeal the income tax cuts, which passed 2 years ago. And I railed against them yesterday on this bill because, in my opinion, this is a slap in the face to the people of Hawaii. We promised them 2 years ago tax relief. We promised them this historic tax cut. The Speaker of the House, the Senate President, the governor toured the state applauding themselves, saying we passed the largest income tax cut in Hawaii state history. And this income tax cut would have phased over 7 years. So the final result of it, we would see by 2031. Well, here we are in 2026, and now they're saying, you know what, never mind. We want to claw those breaks back because we, the government, need more money. We want to expand programs. We want to keep spending. And we believe that is not the right approach. It is not right to renege on the promises that we made to the people of Hawaii.
So at this point, is it a postponement, or it's not a complete, we're not doing it anymore? It's kind of like we're delaying it.
That's a good point, because the governor went on TV, I believe here in Hawaii News Now, and used the word pause. There's just a pause. That's a blatant lie. It's a blatant lie. The bill proposed by the governor's administration, HB 2306, introduced by the House Speaker, Nakamura, had no sunset date to this pause. So there is no pause. It was a complete repeal. So what they're saying is they allowed the first year tax cut to go into effect, which is like 15% of the full 100% tax cut. And what they're saying is from 2026 all the way to 2031, we're canceling all of that.
Oh.
And so there is no sunset date saying, well, maybe just for 2 years
Yeah.
or just for 5 years. There is no sunset. It's a complete repeal. So when Democrats say, we're just pausing this, that's a blatant lie.
So is there any way going forward to bring it back, or you have to go through the whole process again?
We would have to go, well, if these bills pass, the House bill or Senate bill, it would significantly repeal, a complete repeal, those income tax cuts. And the only way to go back would be through a new bill in a forthcoming session to do so.
Okay.
And which I have very, little faith in them doing, because they want to keep spending. They want to keep growing the size of government and not focus on how can we trim the budget? How can we be fiscal stewards of taxpayer dollars and find areas where we can actually smartly trim the budget? That's not happening.
So, just to understand this for folks that have been or have not been following. So, if they pause this and then they decide to, in these hearings, because it's still obviously being
moving,
discussed,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, can they build in this kind of sunset date that you're talking about? So there's
They could.
opportunity to adjust it.
There's still time to do it, and I would hope that, if they do that, I would still vote against it, but that would be better if there is some kind of sunset to really pause.
Because I think that was how it was kind of explained to everybody.
That was the message that Josh Green gave to the whole state, but the bill that his office gave to the legislature had no pause date or no sunset date. It was a complete repeal. And so that's why I took an issue with that by, going on TV, going out to the media outlets and saying, we just want to pause this temporarily and then blame the federal administration for this, when the actual bill that he introduced, which most people have no time to read through, these long bills,
Yeah.
it was a complete repeal.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So for folks that are following, definitely read up on that. And if something that you are interested in getting involved, there's hearings going
Yes.
forward, right? Okay. So you talked about spending, government spending. Obviously, your party has been very adamant about reining in a lot of the government spending. And especially in this fiscal year, you're seeing so many pressures
Yeah.
economically broader in
Right.
the outside economy, national economy. Are you seeing a lot of the agencies rein in when they're asking for money? Are you seeing some of those built-in kind of self-policing
Sure.
measures?
Well, self-policing, no. Departments never want to, trim back their spending. In fact, most of the departments will come to the ledge each year asking for more FTE positions. They come in asking for more funding for new programs. So no department wants to trim. Now, the governor did tell department heads to basically trim down by about 10% this year. Now, and I mentioned this yesterday on the House floor, if he had added just 4% more per department to move that 10 to 14%, we could save an additional $89 million.
How is that? How does that work with the math?
Well, so basically, the departments were told by the governor to, claw back their own spending internally by 10% of their normal expense. If they would just claw back 14%, that 4% adjustment could save $89 million with all state departments combined. So, that's one thing. Also, there are vacant positions just sitting there. We have hundreds of vacant state positions. If we would actually eliminate those and then prioritize certain ones over others, which have been sitting there for over 4+ years, we could save an additional few $100 million. We have about $500 million sitting in special funds, which could be repurposed. If we go back to the pre-2023 spending levels for DHERD, for example, we could save $10 million. If we would just revert back to the 2019 spending levels with the adjustment of inflation, we could save $120 million. And so just these few things alone, and there are more, but just these few things alone, we could save close to $1 billion in funds. And the governor is saying, there's a $1.4 to $1.8 billion shortfall due to the federal administration. I don't buy that. But again, if that's the case, and if that's the narrative that's being pushed, just based on these few things alone I mentioned, we could save over $1 billion.
So you're suggesting are there measures that are part of these suggestions that are moving through, or how
Not
are
really.
you?
Not
How
really.
are you proposing these? I guess just directly with the governor, as opposed to trying to codify them in a measure.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we would like to see those those tax cuts from 2 years ago really go into full effect, and have departments self-police themselves and cut down on spending. Obviously, the Finance Committee and the WAM Committee, they control the money in the legislature. I don't see them, on the House side at least, really tightening our belts and trying to do smart cuts, And the Democrats will come back and say, well, that means you want to cut essential services. You want to cut, health care and SNAP benefits for people. That is not the case. We could make smart cuts without touching any social or a safety social net. So it's possible. We don't have to cut essential services to be smart when spending money.
Yeah, well, because obviously you were talking about your own constituents that benefit from a lot of these programs
That's
as
right.
well,
That's
right?
right.
So you wouldn't want that to
Not
be
at all.
cut as well.
Not at all.
So what is the pushback then in terms of finding these alternative options of, it sounds like it's really just kind of pulling from different buckets.
Yes.
To a layman person. So
Well, I think it's an overall look at our expenses. I don't think our finance committee, and it's not just our current finance committee, but in years past, has really taken a deep dive into the budget and see exactly where are we wasting money. In fact, we pay an auditor. We have a state auditor. And he's identified certain areas where we could make cuts, and that would save millions and millions of dollars. So it's not like there are no options. We are given recommendations almost every year from the auditor, and those recommendations oftentimes go ignored.
Okay. So again, I guess for people that are listening, I guess we're missing the disconnect of why aren't these recommendations considered, or are they being considered, and then the people who are making these decisions just feel like the other option is better.
Well,
right?
I think there's yes, they do, and there is an ideological difference. There is a belief in the majority, and not all, but most of my colleagues, because there are Democrats who do agree that we can actually shrink the budget and conduct smart cuts. But the majority of them feel that we must keep expanding the size of government. We must keep providing new programs, because in their view, government is the solution to solve Hawaii's problems. And in my opinion, government has really been the cause of Hawaii's problems.
So yeah, like you said, it sounds like a fundamental ideological
Right.
difference
Yes.
between the two thought process. And obviously there's a spectrum.
Yes,
right?
there
There's
is a
people, because
spectrum.
I
Yeah.
have talked to several Democratic lawmakers that have come on and support things like getting rid of the GET on our
Yes,
groceries,
yes.
right? Which is for a long time we thought would never happen.
Right.
That was like a very big debate for a long time. So are you seeing maybe movement in that?
There was some movement. I mean, there is a bill to do that. I think it was this year actually, and that would have kind of shrink the GET tax on groceries, but it was phased over a number of years. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, but the governor back in 2022 campaigned on this, that we should eliminate the GE tax on groceries and food. Hawaii, I believe, is one of 4 or 6 states across the nation that still taxes food. And we're 4 years into his administration and nothing's happened. No movement in the legislature, minus that one bill with a spread out minor tax relief. We believe that we should eliminate it completely right now, because this would give direct savings to families. You don't have to wait till they file taxes each year. They would see it every single day when they're shopping in the grocery store.
Yeah, so I know that's at least being discussed.
It is.
So that seems to be movement.
Some progress.
Some progress, slowly but surely in our state of Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're running out of time, but I wanted to give you a chance to kind of focus on what you want people to talk about or think about as they're following the session. Midway through, starting to see bills getting not heard.
Yeah.
What do you want people to focus on that may not have been discussed widely already?
Well, I think some of the biggest issues this session obviously is the income tax issue. That's the big issue that's being discussed on both sides. But I also have concern with the soft on crime approach to justice reform. They call it justice reform. Yesterday, I had a back and forth debate with the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Rep. Tarnas, on this. And that is, he has a different ideology and feels that we should be going in a more softer on crime approach. And that is, for example, officers would no longer be allowed to make arrests for certain Class C felonies, for misdemeanors, for petty misdemeanors, and that could be things like child pornography, the possession of an unlawful firearm, ghost guns, bombings. I mean, these are things which address public safety, and if the bill passes the full session, which I pray to God it doesn't, this would prohibit police officers from issuing arrests. They would now have to issue citations, issue like parking tickets to people. And that is not helping to preserve Hawaii's public safety. Families in my community have seen an uptick in violent crime. In the last few weeks, we've had a shooting out in Kapolei. We've had stabbings in my district. And again, many of these people are repeat offenders. They're repeat offenders, and they're out there because they're not locked up, because we have politicians who feel, well, it's racist to lock certain people up. Well, it's disenfranchising certain people and not to lock them up. People are sick of that ideology. And I said yesterday, stop going to mainland think tanks and looking at, Chicago and other Portland, Oregon, and other very liberal jurisdictions who have experimented with these failed policies and try to repackage it and use Hawaii as a testing ground for progressive radical ideology.
So the suggestion is focusing perhaps on these social supports that would address the roots of some of these law enforcement issues.
And I mentioned this yesterday, that it is not common sense to vote yes on this bill, in that bill in specific, because the AG was against it. Every single county police department were against it. The prosecuting attorneys for Honolulu County, for Hawaii County, for Maui County, were all against this, saying it's bad policy. Don't do this. It will impact public safety. And unfortunately, most of my colleagues went along with it. Now, I do have to give some Democrats props, because there was close to 20 no votes on that bill yesterday. A mixture of Republicans and Democrats. So it's not, that all Democrats are in favor of this radical ideology. There were quite a bit, actually. I mean, for 20 no votes to happen on third reading is actually quite rare. So it was actually encouraging to see some of my colleagues across the aisle stand up for common sense public safety.
Well, and as you said, I think it really depends on the ideology of the person, right? If public safety and law enforcement is fundamentally important, feeling safe in your home,
That's
and
right.
like you said, and if you've been witnessed or experienced some violent crime, you definitely want stricter laws. And so many times we talk to people who, at least here in the news, of people that want justice for their loved ones, and they feel like sometimes the processes fail for whatever reason, right? The courts fail them, or the lack of police officers, right? Because we have a staffing shortage also.
No, exactly.
So,
I think many families feel that Hawaii's judicial system and our politicians favor criminals over victims, and we forget a lot about the victims who were affected by this, the families who were ripped off, who were injured, who were attacked, who were assaulted, businesses who are broken into, businesses who are constantly losing merchandise to shoplifting. I mean, things like this, and it seems like politicians are prioritizing the criminals, saying we're too harsh on criminals. Well, what about the small businesses? What about those families who are struggling? And that's who Hawaii Republicans will stand up for.
All right. Well, Representative Diamond Garcia, thank you for this interesting discussion. I think these are the types of discussions both sides of the aisle should be having constantly. So appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
Raising awareness for us and our viewers. Representative Diamond Garcia with us this morning. And that's all for us here at Hawaii News Now. We'll see you next time.